A colossal, boar-headed beast with glowing red eyes holds a man upside down in its powerful grip. Steam hisses from its nostrils as it looms over its helpless prey, the air thick with the promise of death. Dangling precariously, the man questions how he ended up in this predicament. He doesn't want to die, not yet. As the thought crosses his mind, a single card, Demon's Dragoon, slips from his pocket, a memento of a different kind of battle. The scene shifts. This is Kamafuda Susaku, age 30, in his element at a card game shop. With a triumphant cry, he declares victory, announcing he's paid the magic cost to unleash his trump card, Demon's Dragoon, for a decisive one-hit attack. A sound indicates his own life points dwindling for the powerful move. He throws his head back, roaring with laughter about the sheer thrill of a comeback victory. His defeated opponent clutches his head in disbelief, lamenting that Susaku drew the one card that could save him and complaining that a life point reduction is a painful price to pay. Flushed with adrenaline, Susaku declares that getting high on a card game is the best, comparing it to a legal drug. His opponent can only offer a meek apology. Another player observes that this is Susaku's 10th match and 8th win, asking if his arm is getting tired. Susaku brushes it off, saying he has to use his old cards now that he has them. After the games, his friends discuss their own lives. One remarks that it's difficult to go home just to sell cards, while another worries his wife will be angry about the travel expenses. A third simply thanks Susaku for inviting him to play. Walking home alone, Susaku reflects on his friends. They've all moved to Tokyo, gotten married, and graduated from card games. He, however, still lives with his parents, unable to let go. He thinks of them as good people. Arriving at his house, he looks forward to sorting through the old cards his friends brought for him. He calls out that he's home. Immediately, a sharp female voice replies, telling him dinner is ready and ordering him to wash his hands at once. Susaku meekly agrees. Seated at the dinner table between his parents, Susaku endures a lecture from his mother. She reminds him he's already 30 years old and demands he stop playing around and get married soon. She refers to this recurring topic as her conversation deck. The scene shifts one last time to another intense card game. His opponent, eyes wide with fervor, declares a strategy. Marriage hunting meta beat. Facing this thematic assault, Susaku steels himself, vowing to seal all his opponent's arguments and crush him with the strongest meta deck. He found himself once again facing his mother's questions about marriage. He dismissed the idea as impossible, questioning who would want a card gamer who still lived in a child's room. With a sigh, he resigned himself to the conversation, seeing no way out. In response, she placed an envelope on the table, revealing a stack of bills. It was 220,000 yen, she explained, for him to use at a marriage consultation service. He stared in disbelief at the sum, his mind immediately calculating that it was enough to buy an entire carton of new card packs. He questioned how she could have possibly gotten such a large amount of money. Taking a calm sip from her cup, she assured him it was all right because the money was his. The statement only deepened his confusion. A terrible realization began to dawn on him as his mother's voice echoed in his mind. She had sold all the cards in his room. He scrambled to his room, only to find his worst fears confirmed. The shelves were bare. Every single one of his cards was gone. The 220,000 yen felt worthless in his hands. He remembered the years, starting from elementary school, spent painstakingly collecting every card. All of it was gone, appraised at a pittance. All that remained was the single deck in his hand. From the deck, he drew his most treasured card, Demon's Dragoon. His partner, his strength left his legs, and he fell to his knees. These weren't just cards. They were his entire youth. He couldn't believe his mother would sell his private property without asking, wondering if she had any idea of their true value. He felt it was time to give up, to retire from it all. But as he looked at his Demon's Dragoon, he noticed something else tucked into the sleeve. There were more cards, 7 of them. Pulling them out, his demeanor shifted entirely. A confident smile spread across his face as he examined the unfamiliar cards. One of them was titled Otherworld Summoning. He wondered himself how he could possibly have a card like this. He stared in disbelief as the card in his hand began to glow with an intense, blinding light. He cried out, questioning what was happening as the card itself began to shine. The light seemed to pull at him, and he let out a terrified scream as his body was dragged from his room into the hallway. He lost his footing, his hands scraping against the floor as the last box of his precious cards tumbled over. He was drawn completely into a vertical rift of light that had sliced through the air. Disoriented, he found himself standing on soil, surrounded by unfamiliar wilderness. He wondered where he was, noting the strange, beastly smell in the air. The source of the smell was a colossal, pig-headed monster that loomed over him, its muscular form crackling with a strange energy. The creature grunted, seemingly as confused by his presence as he was by its existence. Sweat beaded on his brow as he desperately questioned if this was all just a terrible dream. His hope shattered as the monster let out a deafening roar, confirming the terrifying reality of his situation. He scrambled away in a panic, but the creature's massive hand shot out and grabbed him. Dangling upside down by his ankle, he lamented his fate. His cards had been sold, and now he was about to be eaten by a monster, a string of nothing but bad luck. He didn't want to die. As he struggled, the glowing card slipped from his pocket. The card plummeted towards a pillar of light that erupted from the ground below. With all his might, he screamed that he did not want to die. Suddenly, he was on his knees on the ground, watching as the monster was violently pulled into the light. The strange energy coalesced, and a new card materialized before him, one bearing the image of the very creature that had just been captured. He could only stare, wondering what this meant. He reflected on how he met his partner in this strange, new world. His new reality was dominated by a colossal tree whose canopy pierced the clouds. It stood watch over a vast, seemingly endless forest. Within this wilderness, he had found an abandoned settlement, a collection of weathered wooden huts. His body, now toned and muscular from constant labor, glistened with sweat. Wiping his brow with a sigh of relief, he noted that his main work for the day was done. All that remained was to patrol the perimeter and repair the barricades. 32 days had passed since his arrival in this other world. Against all odds, he had managed to survive within the safety of the settlement's walls. He considered it a stroke of incredible luck to have found this abandoned village. With renewed determination, he decided it was time to get to work. To aid him, he relied on the power of his new card. He held it aloft, calling on his partner, the orc, and commanding it to summon. In a flash of light, the massive creature materialized, its existence now tied to the card's ability. He now understood his capabilities. He could materialize monsters from cards, turning them into servants that obeyed his commands. He was a monster tamer. Pointing towards the forest, he gave his first order: attack any monsters you find. The orc bellowed and charged into the trees, immediately clashing with a pack of savage, wolf-like creatures that leaped from the shadows to attack. It lets out a ferocious roar, bringing its massive axe down in a powerful arc that cleaves through the werewolf before it. As the defeated monsters dissolve into glowing cards, Susaku reflects on his power, the ability to transform any monster he defeats into a card he can command. He meticulously records his new acquisitions in a journal, noting that he now possesses 3 werewolf cards. It occurs to him that the distribution of monsters in this area seems strangely unbalanced. Standing beside his powerful orc companion, he reaffirms his unwavering resolve. He tells the creature that he will absolutely survive and find a way to return to his own world. This goal is fueled by a burning memory, a promise to buy back the cards that were sold. The thought fills him with a fierce determination. Pulled from his thoughts, his attention is drawn to the orc, whose ears suddenly twitches. It has detected something. Susaku asks what it is, wondering if there's something deeper in the forest. Deeper in the woods, 2 young women, a warrior and a mage, flee for their lives, breathing heavily as they push through the dense undergrowth. Their path is suddenly blocked by a hulking giant ogre. The warrior calls out to her companion, Chaco, who stares in disbelief, lamenting their terrible luck at encountering such a formidable beast while they are injured. The creature observes that both adventurers are already covered in wounds. As it contemplates its next move, the warrior urges her friend to live, declaring it's better than dying in this place. With renewed resolve, she shouts a command, "Orc tackle!" In response, Susaku's orc smashes into the giant ogre's side, stopping its attack cold. The 2 women stare in stunned silence. Behind them, Susaku steps out from the trees, asking if they are all right. He is surprised to find that the people of this world speak a language he can understand. He watched as the giant ogre swung its massive axe down with incredible force. The 2 adventurers looked on in shock, the warrior crying out in surprise at the sight of the orc, questioning if another monster had been lurking in the forest. But before the axe could find its mark, the orc monster met the attack head-on. The blow landed with a deafening crash, not against flesh, but against the orc's powerful forearm, which it had raised to block the weapon. The blade stopped dead, its momentum completely halted. Seeing this display of power, Susaku's expression hardened with determination. He held a card, thinking to himself that the orc was his partner, his strongest card. His focus drew the attention of the adventurers, with the warrior pointing out the card in his hand. His presence did not go unnoticed. The giant ogre glared down at him, acknowledging that this summoned creature was far stronger than the one from its own card. It then growled a direct challenge. "What will you do?" Ignoring the beast's taunt, he turned to the 2 women. He told them that he would handle the situation and asked them to take care of the aftermath. The warrior, surprised by his command, questioned if he could truly manage it. He answered without hesitation, assuring them it was no problem. His partner, he declared with absolute confidence, was the strongest. As the giant ogre roared its challenge, Susaku revealed his next move. He brought forth a new card, declaring it his trump card, Defense Down. As the giant ogre brings its massive club crashing down, Kamafuda Susaku stands firm. He extends a hand, uttering a single, powerful word, summon. In response to his command, a colossal, black-armored dragon materializes, intercepting the blow with its formidable claws. Susaku explains that according to the rules, his summoned demon's dragoon possesses destruction resistance. He continues, stating that by paying a magic cost, he can inflict damage on the target monster. As he channels his power, the demon's dragoon gathers a sphere of volatile energy in its maw, roaring for it to burn the enemy to ashes. The creature unleashes its ultimate attack, Unlimited Judgment. The beam of pure energy completely engulfs the giant ogre, obliterating it in a blinding flash. The 2 female adventurers watch, stunned, as a single card materializes where the monster once stood. The mage picks up the card, which now bears the ogre's image. She examines it, asking her companion if it's some kind of curse charm and questioning how he managed to summon a monster just now. Nearby, Susaku smirks through his exhaustion, sweat dripping from his chin. He reflects on how tiring it is to summon the demon's dragoon, acknowledging the high cost of using such a powerful endgame card. He then collapses, completely spent. The warrior approaches, exasperated, telling him to rest. She complains that carrying a man is impossible, asking if he thinks she's some kind of gorilla. Susako points towards some ruined cabins, noting that while they were likely attacked by monsters, the beds and food should be safe, and they should find a dungeon quickly. Sometime later, he awakens to find his head resting comfortably in the mage's lap. He looks up at her, asking who she is. She calmly introduces herself as a mage. He becomes flustered, realizing he's resting against the wall of her chest. In the background, the warrior observes that her sister seems to be in a foul mood. The warrior steps forward, introducing herself as Chako, the swordsman. She warns Susaku not to get any ideas about borrowing or selling her older sister, declaring that she despises him. Chako admits he's strong for a first encounter, but states that he is her fated enemy. Still lying down, Susaku can only stare in bewilderment, questioning this sudden enmity and the mention of a dungeon. He lay on the ground, looking up as the mage tried to calm her sister, calling her Otome. The warrior, however, turned away, muttering that he was an outsider and shouldn't say anything unnecessary. The mage ignored her sister's outburst, explaining to Susaku that they came to explore an uncharted dungeon. Otome, enraged, insisted that this was their secret and he shouldn't be told. She leaned closer, a gentle smile on her face as she placed a hand on his forehead. She proposed that he cooperate with them, referring to him as the legendary summoner. Her proposal continued as she pressed closer, asking if he would help them, given that he possessed the talent of a monster summoner. Susaku, however, was distracted and flustered by their proximity, wondering what was pressing against him. His bewildered thoughts were interrupted by a new realization. He saw that the current situation resembled a spike trap from a game, causing him to question why he was so calm. Otome forcefully pulled her sister away, scolding her for her strange methods of persuasion. The mage calmly replied that she was only making a request, and that his game knowledge had been helpful. She then turned to Susaku, who was now sitting up, and began to explain, asking first what a dungeon is. He seemed surprised she didn't know, pointing out the giant labyrinth tree in the distance. In the distance, a colossal tree pierced the sky, its immense canopy spreading over the forest below. This was the labyrinth tree. At its roots, a dark, gaping maw formed an entrance leading deep underground. This was the dungeon, an otherworld where countless adventurers gathered to seek their fortunes, battling fierce monsters like the hulking cyclops that now roared before a party of warriors. Otome explained that they had not yet found the uncharted dungeon they were searching for. Susaku listened, his expression thoughtful as he processed the word otherworld. He recalls the black card he obtained the moment he was transported to this otherworld. Etched upon its surface were the words, "Otherworld Summoning." As he reflects on this, the mage whispers that the term otherworld might be a hint. She explains that established dungeons are difficult for newcomers to enter due to existing claims, which is why they seek a new one. She asks him to keep their quest a secret. Her expression grows more serious as she admits their search for a dungeon has not been going well. It was during this search, she recounts, that they were attacked by a monster in the forest, and he, a summoner, was the one who saved them. She then clarifies for him that a summoner is a person who possesses the talent to summon monsters. The mage continues, explaining that among the many talents one can possess, monster summoning is exceptionally rare. A true summoner, she emphasizes, is a legendary existence. Her voice rises as she declares that he is that very legendary summoner, a real one, standing right before them. The accusation strikes Susaku with immense force, his face contorting in disbelief. Following her declaration, she clasps her hands and formally pleads for his help. With the power of a summoner, she insists their dungeon exploration is sure to succeed. He recoils, his mind reeling. He is just a regular man. He thinks frantically, not a legendary summoner or even a legendary card gamer. It's impossible, absolutely impossible. Seeing his reaction, the mage apologizes, believing her unreasonable request was a nuisance. Flustered, Susaku quickly tries to correct her, insisting that isn't what he meant at all. The exchange leaves him standing alone, lost in thought. He sees people in need asking for help and questions himself. Is it right to refuse? What is the proper thing for an adult to do in this situation? He finally reached a decision. All right, he declared, I'll help you. The two adventurers stared back, their expressions a mixture of shock and dawning hope. The warrior, her usual stern demeanor broken, asked in disbelief, really? He met their gaze with a newfound, albeit strained, intensity. With a bead of sweat tracing his temple, he held up his card and made a bold proclamation. My name is Kamafuda Susaku, he announced, and I am the legendary summoner. In another world, a man named Kamafuda Susaku was granted a unique power, the ability to transform monsters into cards and command them, a skill he called Kamafuda Suso. This power brought him to the attention of two adventurers. The mage, her eyes wide with hope, identified him as the legendary summoner and pleaded with him to lend them his strength. He looked them over, recognizing them as natives of this world who also seemed to be summoners. Understanding their plight, he agreed to cooperate, finding himself unable to refuse their earnest request. Having made his decision, He held up a card and declared his name to be Kamafuda Susaku, the legendary summoner. He had no way of knowing, then, that this simple lie would soon invite immense trouble. Later, in a small village, the mage cheerfully explained to her companion that the great summoner was using the town as his base of operations. The warrior, however, looked on with skepticism, muttering that he was just using the village for his own convenience. She continued her praise, expressing amazement that he was living all alone in a place surrounded by such a dangerous forest. As she spoke, Susaku glanced back at her, overhearing the conversation. The mage gushed that his reputation as a summoner was so overwhelming it was almost frightening. Internally, Susaku panicked, realizing his simple ability to turn monsters into cards was being mistaken for the legendary power of a summoner in this world. The warrior cut in, her expression serious. She questioned if being a summoner was perhaps something more dangerous than they thought, asking why he would be hiding in such a remote area if he was aligned with the kingdom. Elsewhere, under a heavy downpour, a sinister group gathered. Their leader, an elderly man in a wide-brimmed hat, explained to his monstrous subordinates that a summoner could single-handedly rival the entire royal army, a power great enough to overthrow a nation. Back in the village, the mage revealed the terrifying truth to a stunned Susaku. She explained that he was hiding because if the kingdom were to discover someone with his talent, he would become a target for subjugation. He initially thought it must be a misunderstanding, but the grim reality settled in. He couldn't deny it. This was something he had to keep secret. As he grappled with this revelation, the mage adventurer cheerfully declared that she would, of course, be borrowing his power from now on. He recognized the pattern immediately. They were preying on his weakness. She pressed him, asking if he was refusing her request and addressing him formally as summoner. He began to protest, stating that he wasn't actually a summoner, but the warrior adventurer sharply interjected, telling him to wait. She grabbed her companion's arm, demanding to know why she was making decisions unilaterally. The warrior declared firmly that she would not acknowledge this man. He watched, taken aback by her forceful personality. He wondered at her power, questioning if she could truly handle things on her own. The warrior confronted her partner directly, questioning why she was so intent on getting help from him. The mage calmly explained that they were cornered and that an ally was essential. Her companion retorted that their dungeon exploration plan had no need for a man who looked so unreliable. The mage countered, asking if she would rather they spread their plans to others, and suggested they should at least try to confirm his abilities. Turning back to Susaku, the mage apologized for the dispute. She then requested that he witness the power of her companion. With a bright smile, she formally proposed a mock battle. It would be a chance for him to witness the warrior's strength and, in turn, demonstrate his own true power as a summoner. The proposal left both him and the warrior utterly bewildered. He stares in disbelief at the warrior, demanding to know why he's suddenly been forced into a fight. The mage calmly reassures him that it's just a light spar, but Susaku protests, declaring it's absurd for a simple card gamer like him to fight another person. In response, the warrior hefts her enormous greatsword, her expression one of impatience. She orders him to stop wasting time and summon a monster, anything, even a dragon, vowing to cleave it in two. He glances at the menacing blade, realizing it looks far too dangerous for a light spar. With no other option, he draws a card. A bright light erupts, and from it emerges a muscular, bipedal wolf creature. Gome, werewolf, Susaku commands, his initial panic giving way to a cautious resolve to assess the situation. The two adventurers stare, stunned by the successful summoning. The werewolf crouches, poised to attack, as the warrior shouts an order to disrupt its movements. But it is not just one. A pack of werewolves materializes, swiftly surrounding the warrior from all sides. Watching from the sidelines, the mage analyzes the strategy. She recognizes the intent, to use the nimble werewolves to harry the warrior and disrupt her footing. However, the warrior seems unfazed by the tactic. She grips her greatsword, her expression hardening as a werewolf lunges with a vicious snarl. With a contemptuous cry not to be underestimated, she effortlessly swats the lunging beast aside with the flat of her blade. Susaku watches in shock as the warrior, now glowing with a faint aura, utters a single word, accelerate. In a flash, she becomes a blur, closing the distance between herself and the monsters instantaneously. Susaku can only stare, a thought crystallizing in his mind. The word accelerate must be the trigger for some incredible ability she possesses. He watched the display, explaining that just like his own monster summoning and magic, humans possess inherent abilities known as talents. As he spoke, the warrior moved in a blur, effortlessly slicing through one of the werewolves while the mage looked on with a focused gaze. This specific talent, belonging to the warrior Chaco, was acceleration, the power to alter her own speed. She stood poised with her greatsword, her expression resolute, ready for the next move. Kamafuda Susaku considered his options, holding his cards close. He wondered what he should do. If he had a card that could increase speed, he might be able to counter, but he also had to consider what the swordswoman was thinking. As he deliberated, the warrior adventurer suddenly burst into motion, lunging past him with incredible speed. She declared that it was her turn now, leaving Susaku stunned by her abrupt action. She intercepted the orc monster's powerful downward swing, her own weapon clashing against its massive axe. From a distance, Susaku observed the confrontation, realizing that she hadn't shouted accelerate during her attack. He concluded that they needed to create some distance from the orc. He began to ponder the nature of abilities that could be used without vocalization. He explained that commands issued to monsters were much the same. There were direct vocal commands and silent mental commands. He continued, clarifying that while both methods work, vocal commands are better for conveying general intent. Mental commands, on the other hand, require specific, concrete instructions to be effective, otherwise the creature won't move as intended. The orc looked on, confused by the lecture. This line of thought led him to a realization about the warrior. She had been able to activate her ability without a vocal command. He wondered if there was a difference in the effect based on her reaction, a distinction between using a call-out and not. Meanwhile, the warrior kept her guard up, her expression stern. She realized he had noticed her feint and had wisely kept his distance. A new thought occurred to her. Could he, like her, issue commands without speaking? She knew that her accelerate ability's potency changed depending on whether she vocalized the command. When spoken aloud, the power was far greater, a trump card she saved for a decisive blow. Her gaze fell upon Susaku and the orc. She anticipated that he would issue a command now. Just as she predicted, Susaku ordered the orc to attack from the right. The creature readied its weapon. The warrior saw an opening. If she could just get past its undefended body, she could win. Her expression hardened into a fierce glare. Raising her weapon high, she declared that her pride would never allow her to accept such a cheap and easy victory. She stood with a confident smirk, her sword held ready. She challenged Susaku directly, asking if he intended to face her head-on, or if he would simply have his orc strike her down without a fight. A move she mockingly called chocolate. He considered his options. A simple attack from the orc would be easily dodged. To secure a victory, he realized he needed to find a way to stop her movements entirely. His thoughts raced. Summoning another large monster was impossible, and his current hand was limited. He needed a new approach, a hint from his past experiences to break the stalemate. A memory surfaced, a card shop from his youth, where he sat with friends, learning the game. In the flashback, the shop owner explained a key technique in card games, making your opponent believe you possess something that you actually don't. A younger, more naive Susaku looked up, confused by the concept. He asked the shop owner to clarify what he meant by having something you don't. The owner illustrated his point with an example of a past battle. A golem with 5,000 power faced a hyena with only 3,000. However, the hyena's player used a gigantification card, boosting its power to 6,000 and securing an unexpected victory. He then posed a scenario to the young Susaku. If your opponent knows you have gigantification in your hand, they will hesitate to attack. But what if you didn't actually have a card? By acting as if you did, you could bluff and control their actions, making them wary of a threat that doesn't exist. The boy absorbed the lesson. The shop owner explained that this was a bluff, a way to restrict an opponent's actions by making them believe in a fiction. He urged Susaku to remember it, for it would surely be useful one day. Back in the present, the memory faded. Susaku's expression hardened with resolve. He mentally thanked the shop owner, acknowledging that the old lesson was proving useful even now. With newfound clarity, he pointed decisively towards the orc. He declared that he could see a path to victory and roared a single, direct command. Charge! The warrior adventurer stared, utterly stunned by the simple, head-on assault. She scoffs at the orc's straightforward charge, believing it to be a foolish move. Confident in her own speed, she declares that she can counter an attack from any direction and defiantly tells the creature to bring it on. In response, Susaku bellows a new, unexpected command. Now, jump to the left. The warrior's confident expression shatters into one of startled confusion. The creature, however, does not follow the command precisely. Instead of jumping, it plants its foot hard and pivots sharply, contradicting the order. The warrior is stunned, wondering aloud why he would issue a reverse command. From the sidelines, the mage adventurer observes that the command and the movement were different, realizing that the warrior's defensive posture has been completely broken by the feint. The warrior roars in frustration, refusing to be underestimated. She realizes that if the orc continues its acceleration, it will strike her down, and she prepares to forcibly correct its trajectory. Her attention is suddenly drawn away from the monster as she spots movement from an unexpected source. To her shock, she sees Susaku, the summoner, sprinting directly towards the battlefield. She watches him run, questioning why he would choose to fight directly. She dismisses the threat, noting that the distance is still too great for any attack of his to reach her. He ignores her thoughts, his face a mask of pure determination as he utters a single, powerful word, accelerate. At that moment, her eyes widen in horror. A terrible realization dawns on her as she understands her mistake. She finally understood. The verbal command to the orc, the feint, all of it was a bluff. The accelerate skill was never meant for the monster. Caught off guard by the summoner's charge, she now faced the true threat. His orc, thundering towards her with immense force. As the creature kicked up a cloud of dust, the mage adventurer, watching from a distance, realized with a jolt that if the blow had landed, it would have been fatal. The immediate danger having passed, the warrior, Chaco, knelt on the cracked earth and looked up at her opponent. She asked the summoner if he was ready to admit his defeat. She pressed him, demanding to know if he could even use the accelerate ability. Susaku calmly replied that he could not, explaining that unlike her, he possessed no combat power of his own. He conceded that she had one. His expression then hardened. He revealed that while he couldn't use the ability, he had shouted the word accelerate deliberately to confuse her and stop her movements. Chaco reacted with outrage, calling him despicable. Unfazed, Susaku continued, explaining that his first command was also a bluff, issued mentally to his orc. From the very beginning, he told her his plan was to attack her directly. It had been his victory all along. Her anger subsided into a flustered blush. Though the fight was over, she crossed her arms and conceded defeat for this round, acknowledging his skill. From her vantage point, the mage adventurer analyzed the duel's conclusion. The most crucial factor, she determined, was that the summoner had never allowed Chaco to execute her most optimal course of action. She continued her internal monologue. Chaco's tactics were simple. Powerful strikes with her greatsword, enhanced by acceleration. In a straightforward battle, she would have been superior. However, the summoner's bluffs forced Chaco to hesitate and make a judgment call instead of attack. The mage concluded that being constantly forced to react and having her actions restricted was the true cause of Chaco's defeat. She had been unable to fight her own battle. The mage adventurer observes Susaku with a calculating gaze. A realization dawns on her. This man might just be useful for her plan. As she contemplates this, the warrior adventurer confronts Susaku, demanding to know his name. He calmly introduces himself as Kamifuda Susaku. The tiny mage perched on his shoulder remarks on a strange name, while the warrior concedes that he is more capable than she first thought. She then closes the distance, her face flushed with a mix of determination and embarrassment. She declares that if they are to cooperate, he will work for them like a horse and must help them explore the dungeon. She also snaps at him for calling her Otome, insisting he address her as summoner. Her companion, now restored to her full size, enthusiastically agrees, exclaiming that with the legendary summoner on their side, they'll be 100 times stronger. The praise catches Susaku by surprise, who realizes this might be his chance to clear up the misunderstanding about his identity. He pauses, considering the situation, before asking them to elaborate. What, specifically, does exploring the dungeon entail? The mage explains that a dungeon is certainly located in this forest, and with the summoner's help, they should be able to conquer it. The warrior crosses her arms and adds the direct command. They need him to fight alongside them. The request stuns Susaku, who inwardly questions the idea of him fighting in a forest teeming with monsters. Huddled within the dense foliage of a forest, Kamifuda Susaku and his two adventurer companions watch from concealment. The warrior, peering through a spyglass, confirms their target is in sight, announcing that she's found. Her view reveals a dark, cavernous opening framed by the gnarled, overgrown roots of ancient trees. A stone path leads to a set of stairs descending into the blackness, the entrance to the labyrinth. The sight prompts a weary sigh from Kamifuda Susaku, who pinches the bridge of his nose. He recalls the exhausting full day of searching it took to find this place, remembering how heavily the others had relied on him. He turns to his companions with a worried expression, asking if it's truly safe to proceed. The warrior, however, is already brimming with excitement, declaring that it's time to go. His question is met with immediate, opposing reactions. The warrior argues passionately that since dungeons are where monsters appear, they must explore this one immediately. The mage counters, reminding her of their recent fight with an ogre and pointing out that the forest itself is a natural maze. She firmly states her opposition to rushing in. She elaborates, insisting they must proceed with caution. The mage suggests they should take at least a month to carefully map the surrounding terrain before even considering entering the dungeon. Her cautious proposal is met with disbelief from the warrior, who exclaims that in a month, other adventurers will have already claimed the dungeon. The mage calmly retorts that recklessness is for fools and is a sure path to death. Susaku attempts to interject. Their argument escalates, with the warrior calling the mage a coward, and the mage calling the warrior a simpleton. Susaku raises a hand, trying once more to cut through their bickering. He finally cuts through the noise by unfurling a large piece of paper. He announces that he has a map, explaining that since he's from a nearby village, he's already familiar with the geography of the surrounding forest. He continues, showing them the detailed chart. He explains that it includes information on paths and even local monsters, assuring them that it will be useful for their dungeon exploration. He tried to calm the bickering adventurers. The warrior, her face contorted in anger, demanded to know why he hadn't told them about the map sooner. The mage, however, was simply impressed, praising him as a true summoner. Having found the dungeon entrance, he explained the situation based on his map. While he didn't have a clear idea of what was inside, he pointed out that the monsters grew stronger the closer one got to the entrance. However, he had identified a nearby location with weaker creatures and proposed they head there. Before they could act on his plan, the ground shook as a massive, monstrous foot slammed down nearby. The foot belonged to a hulking ogre, part of a formidable pack that now blocked their path. Among them stood a silent, cloaked figure, its presence ominous. The warrior's expression hardened. She knew they had no choice but to fight their way through. As the warrior prepared for battle, the mage's gaze fixed upon the cloaked being, her curiosity piqued by its strange aura. Kamifuda Susaku, however, was already a step ahead. He held up a single card, his eyes sharp with intent, and announced it was time to proceed according to his strategy. She acknowledged his command, her expression turning deadly serious. The strategy was set. Acceleration. In a flash, she was gone. Her unique talent, the power to manipulate her own speed, allowed her to surge past the lumbering ogre before it could even react. She moved with absolute confidence, knowing that no single opponent could match her velocity. In a one-on-one confrontation, she was certain she could not lose. She focused, ready to accelerate once more. With a single, lightning-fast slash, she decapitated the ogre. She landed lightly, dismissing the need for any complex strategy. She would handle the remaining 3 monsters on her own. She moved with incredible speed, ducking under the massive club of a giant ogre as it swung wildly. Her companion, the mage, watched with a concerned expression as the warrior pressed her reckless attack. The club smashed into the earth, missing her by inches. From a safe distance, Kamafuda Sasuke analyzed the attack, identifying it as a form of earth magic. Seeing this, the mage called out to the warrior, chiding her for getting too far ahead. She then announced her support, casting a grass-type enhancement magic called Forte. Empowered by the spell, the warrior's next strike landed with devastating force, crumpling the giant ogre's midsection and sending it staggering backward. With 1 ogre down, Susaka noted that 2 still remained. Stepping forward into the clearing, he calmly beckoned to the remaining monsters, challenging them to come at him. As they charged, he revealed a card held between his fingers. With unwavering confidence, he invoked its power, declaring, "Giant Ogre, summon." In a flash of light, a new, far more imposing ogre warrior clad in samurai armor materialized before him. The mage watched in astonishment. She observed that the card version of the ogre was significantly larger and more powerful. Realizing this must be the true nature of Susaku's summoning talent. Her realization was confirmed as the summoned warrior faced one of the wild ogres. The brutish creature, once fearsome, now shrieked in absolute terror at the sight of its superior counterpart. Without hesitation, the summoned ogre lunged, its eyes glowing ominously as it swung its katanas in a swift, decisive arc. The battle ended in an instant. The remains of the 2 wild ogres lay scattered across the clearing. From the shadows of the forest, the cloaked figure silently observed the gruesome aftermath. The cloaked figure clutched its robes, a premonition of a powerful enemy suddenly gripping it. Meanwhile, Kamafuda Sasuke held a glowing card, his summoned ogre warrior noting that only 1 foe was left. Despite the apparent victory, Sasuke's gaze remained fixed and wary, a single thought echoing in his mind. But before the adventurers stands a formidable foe, a massive creature seated upon a stone throne. Kamafuda Sasuke and the mage adventurer stare in disbelief as the being is identified. King Ogre, the strongest of his kind. In response, the warrior adventurer wastes no time, declaring that the first strike will decide the battle. She bursts forward, a blur of motion streaking towards the imposing king. Her accelerated charge is met not with a weapon, but with a shield. The King Ogre raises his defense with surprising speed, completely halting her momentum. The force of the impact sends the warrior flying backward, her feet skidding across the stone floor as she struggles to absorb the shock. As she regains her footing, the warrior adventurer confirms that her attack was defended. Seeing this, the mage adventurer prepares a countermeasure, invoking the power of earth magic. Her spell manifests as a colossal wall of solid rock, erupting from the ground to block the King Ogre's path to the warrior. The King Ogre, however, shatters the massive wall with a single, contemptuous swing of his club. The mage watches in horror as the dust settles, revealing that the creature possesses 4 arms and additional weapons on its back. This shocking display prompts the mage to ask Susaku if they should retreat. He firmly refuses, stating he will buy time while the warrior, Otome, executes the plan they devised the previous day. The memory of their campfire discussion surfaces. In a flashback, Susaku explains that understanding their individual talents allows him to formulate a strategy. To complete it, he needs to know the characteristics of the powerful monsters in the forest. The mage provides a succinct answer. In a word, it is predation. She elaborates that as monsters grow stronger, they acquire diverse and complex abilities. Their actions evolve, becoming as cunning and deliberate as those of a wise hunter. The previous night, around a crackling campfire, Susaku considered their options. He mused that this might be a good opportunity, recalling the mage adventurer's talent for magic. He believed she might be quite capable. He explained his thinking, suggesting they use darkness magic to bind the creature's body. The warrior adventurer, surprised, asked about her own role. Susaku affirmed that her high applicability would be the core of their strategy, adding that her destructive power was incredible. With these elements, he declared with grim determination, they could formulate a strategy effective even against a powerful monster. In the present, that strategy was in motion. The warrior adventurer charged towards the giant ogre as the summoned ogre warrior engaged it directly. Susaku watched from a distance, knowing this initial phase was merely a setup to buy time while observing the king ogre's movements. The 2 behemoths locked themselves in a contest of pure strength, the summoned warrior's twin katanas straining against the king ogre's massive club. But the king ogre's power was overwhelming. With a mighty heave, it threw the summoned warrior off balance. He followed through, smashing the armored ogre into the dirt. Susaku watched in disbelief, realizing the king ogre had won the exchange while keeping its extra arms hidden. He wondered why it would hold back. The beast then turned its attention, its gaze locking onto the warrior adventurer as she leaped through the air. Susaku's blood ran cold. He knew that strong monsters targeted the defenseless summoner first. With the warrior adventurer now the primary target, the king ogre activated its accelerate skill. She descended rapidly, but her attack met only empty air as the king ogre sidestepped with impossible speed. The warrior landed, stunned that she had missed, having aimed to take its head clean off. Her miss left her vulnerable. As the king ogre loomed, Susaku's voice cut through the tension. He told her he'd anticipated she might get injured and had come to help. The massive creature turned, a flicker of surprise on its face at Susaku's sudden proximity. He was struck squarely in the face by a rock, the impact staggering him and halting his advance. The projectile was a successful distraction, hurled by the mage adventurer from safe distance. Seeing his attention diverted, the warrior adventurer calls out, taunting the beast to come towards her and declaring that their preparations are complete. He lunges forward, only for the ground beneath his feet to give way. The massive ogre plummets into a hidden pitfall, ensnared by the trap. From her vantage point, the mage adventurer confirms the trap's success. With the giant ogre immobilized, she casts a binding spell upon it. With the creature completely helpless, the summoned ogre warrior moves in. The battle concludes, and a card materializes, confirming the capture of the king ogre. Moments later, the group reconvenes. The mage adventurer expresses her relief, declaring their pitfall strategy a great success as Susaku examines the newly acquired card. She explains that she used earth and grass magic to create the trap that successfully lured the ogre. As she speaks, Susaku tends to a wound on the warrior adventurer's forehead. The warrior, though embarrassed, insists she fought hard, pointing to the blood as proof. The warrior adventurer, concerned, tells the mage that she is the one who is most injured and should rest. The mage dismisses this, suggesting that since the entrance obstacle is cleared, it would be a good time to return at least once. She vehemently rejects the idea of retreating, shouting that they must push forward into the dungeon. The mage counters, urging caution. Watching them, Susaku smiles to himself, musing on their tendency to argue now that they've finally found their objective. Caught in the middle of a dense forest, Kamifuda, Susaku, finds himself accosted by his two companions. The warrior adventurer points an accusatory finger, demanding he declare which of them is right. The mage adventurer echoes the sentiment, addressing him as summoner. Flustered, Susaku throws his hands up, questioning why the blame has fallen on him and insisting they not drag him into their childish fight. She presses him further, declaring that since he is the adult, he must be the one to decide their course of action. His face contorts with stress as he internally fumes, wondering how he is supposed to answer when they only treat him like an adult when it's convenient for them. Her patience snaps. The warrior adventurer lunges at him with a furious scream, telling him to die. As he recoils in shock, another version of himself observes coolly, thinking that if he just says something suitable, it won't matter which choice he makes. His thoughts darken as he considers the girl, Chako, believing she might not make it. A grim premonition flashes through his mind. Next time, Susaku dies. Back in the present, Susaku's expression hardens with resolve. He realizes this argument is completely pointless. Now is not the time for infighting. They cannot afford to divide their strength. He stands firm amidst the lurking werewolves, acknowledging that there is strength in numbers. He knows he should adopt an adult attitude and stop the squabbling. He turns to his companions, considering what to say. He questions whether he should really say such things in front of them, recalling a taboo. For teenage girls to touch a demon core is to trespass into the spirit world. He understands that such a pronouncement would cause the team to collapse. Silently, he turns away from the warrior adventurer, his gaze falling upon a vast, labyrinthine structure in the distance as rain begins to fall. Having heard enough, she lets out a sigh of frustration. With a determined look, the warrior adventurer declares that she has had enough and will go to the dungeon alone. Her decision startles him. Susaku whirls around, shouting for her to wait, warning that it's too dangerous for her to go by herself. But she is already walking away. He stands before the warrior adventurer, who turns to face him at the dungeon's entrance. She tells him to be quiet, admitting that while she had started to acknowledge his worth, her trust is not so easily won. With a furious shout, she declares that she can't trust anyone and will conquer the floor boss all by herself. He recoils, sweating in disbelief at her incredibly short temper. As she descends into the dungeon's depths without a second thought, he panics, realizing he must chase after her. His frantic thoughts are interrupted by the mage adventurer. She calmly reassures him that Chako is stubborn but won't die so easily. He glares back, his face shadowed with frustration, accusing her of being far too nonchalant. He buries his face in his hand, lamenting that he should have explained things properly. The mage seems surprised, realizing he had actually thought things through and murmuring that it's not good to argue and split their forces. She then explains that most mages focus solely on their magic, and that those who are reliable in team play and tactics are quite rare. With a bright, admiring smile, she declares that he is amazing and different from any ordinary mage, respectfully calling him Master Summoner. He can only offer a surprised word of thanks. She moves closer, gently touching his cheek. She confesses that she has been intrigued by him since they met. sensing that he is extraordinary and far from ordinary. Her hand remains on his face as she softly calls out to him again, leaving him flustered and speechless. He is still processing her confession when she leans in close, her voice a low whisper in his ear. With a look of intense curiosity, she asks him a direct question. Who are you really? Her question catches him completely off guard. He internally questions her own identity, noting her peculiar attire and her use of incantations without any summoning talismans. He wonders if she is truly a summoner herself. She gently takes his chin, turning his face towards hers, and presses him for an answer. A sly smile appears as she considers simply telling him the truth, that she came from another world. Her expression darkens ominously, her eyes glowing from the shadows as she murmurs her understanding. She declares that she has found his weak point. A sudden, unsettling feeling washes over Susaku, putting him on high alert. She tells him it's fine, but then issues a quiet warning. She will not allow him to probe any deeper into the matter. A warm, knowing smile spreads across her face as she looks at him directly. Your secret is out, she says softly, a hint of a blush on her cheeks. She moves closer, her hands resting on his chest, and suggests that sharing secrets is a way for men and women to grow closer. She proposes that they get along well, addressing him directly as Master Summoner. He pulls back slightly with a wry grin, apologizing. He explains that he's feeling a bit of secondhand embarrassment, finding it awkward to watch someone try so hard, like a child stretching to seem taller. His words cause her to flinch, her confidence instantly evaporating into a flustered blush. She recoils, utterly baffled by his term sympathetic shame. Blushing, he tries to explain that he understands it's a feeling more common to people of their generation, an adult sensibility. Though her face is still bright red with embarrassment, she squints slightly, thinking to herself that there is something a little strange about his demeanor. Hamafuda Susaku smiles reassuringly, telling the young mage that it's okay. He insists she doesn't have to force herself to act like an adult, and that children should just be children. His condescending words ignite her fury. Her face contorts into a vicious snarl, revealing sharp teeth as she screams at him to shut up, retorting that he's the one who is an old man. He laughs, dismissing her insult by stating that 30 isn't old. She furiously disagrees, insisting that 30 is definitely old man territory. Flustered, she declares she will no longer call him Summoner-sama, but Uncle Susaku instead. The new title strikes him with the force of a physical blow, sending him to his knees in despair. Seizing the opportunity, she points an accusing finger, shouting that Uncle So is a pathetic title and questioning why he even came to this world just to be called that. After a tirade, Susaku looks up, genuinely perplexed. He comments that girls from other worlds seem to have a low boiling point and asks Chako why she suddenly became so angry. He continues to probe, looking at her sideways as he asks if she really didn't notice. With her arms crossed, she states plainly that she is angry because Uncle So, didn't say anything to her. Her words bring a sudden understanding. Still on the ground, Susaku realizes she misinterpreted his silence. He hadn't said anything because he assumed she had no interest in him. She presses her point, demanding to know why he remained silent when he clearly had his own opinions. She accuses him of acting out of an adult's sense of self-preservation, calling his bluntness hurtful. Her accusation hits its mark. His expression turns serious as he looks down, conceding that she is right. He admits that he didn't voice his opinion out of self-preservation, and that this very choice led to their current situation. He remains kneeling as the mage adventurer tells him he doesn't need to apologize to her, questioning if he's just bullying a child. In response, Susaku declares his intention to go to the dungeon. He rises and turns his back on her, stating that she surely wouldn't follow. He will go, he explains, because he is an adult. Meanwhile, deep within a cavern, the warrior adventurer walks alone. She mutters in frustration, thinking what a letdown this is, as she never wanted to come to the dungeon in the first place. Her path is blocked by a small, weak-looking creature. She scoffs, annoyed that all the monsters she has encountered are mere small fry, and confidently believe she can clear the first floor by herself without any trouble. Her confidence gives way to a hardened resolve. She recalls having trusted someone, but now vows to never trust anyone again. From this point on, she will fight alone. As she presses deeper into the cavern, she is suddenly confronted by a group of goblins lying in wait. She initially dismisses them as more weaklings, but her overconfidence leads to a critical mistake. She suddenly finds her path blocked, realizing with a start that she has run into a dead end. Taking advantage of her predicament, the goblins raise their weapons. A spearman prepares to throw, and an archer draws back his bowstring, taking careful aim. Realizing the danger of being a stationary target, she decides to act. She plans to close the distance between them in a single burst of speed and eliminate them all at once. Bracing herself to accelerate, she lunges forward, but her charge is brought to a dead stop as she collides with an unseen barrier. An arrow whistles past her head as she reels back in shock, crying out in disbelief at the invisible wall before her. She reeled from the impact, realizing with dawning horror that her greatsword was now stuck fast in the wall. The recoil from the accelerated blow had sent her flying back, and the dungeon's narrow confines offered no escape. Before she could fully recover, a rock thrown by one of the advancing goblins struck her squarely on the head, stunning her. Staggering from a blow, she turned and fled deeper into the cavern, away from the approaching horde. Her flight was short-lived as her foot caught on the uneven ground, sending her tumbling hard onto the stone floor. Panting for breath, she reasoned that as long as she stayed in the shadow of the rock formation, the goblin's attacks couldn't reach her. Her plan was simple: heal, retrieve her greatsword, and then escape. She tried to reassure herself, repeating that it was fine, that she could still fight on her own. But her words rang hollow. Tears streamed down her dirt-streaked face, betraying her true feelings of fear and despair. Her thoughts drifted back to the earlier confrontation with Sasuke. She recalled telling herself that she understood the situation intellectually, that there was no logical reason to be angry with him. Yet, she admitted to herself that seeing him remain silent, unable to hold his own, sparked an uncontrollable irritation within her. That frustration had led to this disastrous result. Huddled alone in the darkness, she lamented her choices, wondering why she had to be the one to ruin everything. Her moment of self-pity was cut short as the group of goblins rounded the corner, their grotesque faces emerging from the shadows. She looked up, her eyes wide with fresh terror. Trapped against the cave wall, she hears an unfamiliar sound. A flicker of hope crosses her face as she wonders where it's coming from. Could it be reinforcements? But the sound was not the clash of friendly steel. It was a dry, chilling rattle, emanating from a staff topped with a human skull biting down on a femur. The staff was carried by a tall, cloaked figure with long black hair and a grotesque, long-nosed mask. It emerged from the darkness of the cave, leading a new contingent of goblins forward. Its eyes, wide and unblinking behind the mask's dark holes, fixed upon its target with a chilling intensity as the rattling of its bone staff echoed in the cavern. Deep within a cavernous dungeon, Kamafuda Sasaku and the mage adventurer walk side by side. She turns to him, asking how he intends to find Choco now that they've entered the labyrinth. She admonishes him, calling his plan reckless for a grown man. She questions if he intends to hurt everyone with his words, comparing him to a jackknife. In response, he calmly presents a card from his hand. He explains that for now, he'll use this one, a werewolf. He muses aloud, wondering if he can tame the creature using the scent of a she-wolf. A closer look at the card reveals that while the monster itself has a special ability, only its name and image are printed on the card's face. He holds the card forward, declaring that he must deduce its ability. A massive, muscular werewolf materializes before him as he proclaims he will tame it for Choco. The summoned creature stands ready, its head tilted upwards as if sensing something. Behind it, Susaku confirms to the mage adventurer that his plan was successful. His expression hardens with concern. He reasons that if Choco encounters a monster in this narrow labyrinth, her greatsword will be a disadvantage. He silently urges the werewolf to find her quickly, especially if she's facing a powerful foe. A flicker of doubt crosses his mind as he considers the possibility that this card might not be useful after all. Elsewhere, in the depths of another dark cave, a group of goblins gathers. They stand before a taller, cloaked figure holding a staff topped with a skull, a goblin shaman. The goblin shaman, its face a grotesque mask with a long, pointed nose, addresses its kin, its words echoing in the cavern. Elsewhere, in a dark cavern, the captured adventurer Choco observed one of the goblins guarding her. She realized with a start that it was a type she had never encountered before. Having freed herself from her bonds, she decided her only chance was a swift assault. Her greatsword lay nearby, and if she could just retrieve it, she might stand a chance. As she moved, a strange chanting echoed through the cavern. Peeking from behind a rock formation, she saw the goblin shaman, staff raised, leading a ritual as the other goblins began to writhe and convulse. The shaman's magic surged through the goblins. Their bodies warped and expanded, muscles bulging as they grew into hulking, monstrous versions of their former selves. She stared in disbelief, her eyes wide with shock. The goblins had enlarged, transformed into something far more dangerous. Before she could react, the enhanced creatures charged with terrifying speed. One of the brutes swung its massive arm, aiming a devastating blow in her direction. The impact sent her crashing to the ground. She cried out in pain, realizing with horror that their strength was now comparable to that of an orc. As she struggled, the shaman's voice cut through the air. He explained that this was enhancement magic, a spell he had used to strengthen his goblin followers. A wicked grin spread across his face as he gloated, declaring that he had transformed these mere goblins into true monsters. In her moment of shock, a massive hand seized her by the head, lifting her from the ground as if she weighed nothing. She struggled helplessly in its powerful grip. She struggles violently, her face contorted in disbelief and rage. How could a mere goblin possess such overwhelming strength? She screams, demanding to be released. But her efforts are futile against the crushing grip. Her struggle ceases as a horrifying realization dawns upon her. Held effortlessly in the creature's massive hand, she looks up, her voice a whisper as she wonders if this is truly the end. The creature's grip is unyielding. She reflects on her foolishness. If only she had controlled her anger. If she had just been compliant, she wouldn't be facing this fate at the hands of such a lowly creature in this desolate place. Tears stream down her face as despair consumes her. She doesn't want to die. Not like this. A desperate, silent plea forms in her mind. Is there anyone who can save her? Her thoughts coalesce into a single, frantic cry that echoes in the silence of her mind. Someone, help me. Suddenly, A calm voice cuts through the air, startling both the captive adventurer and her goblin captors. A young man, Kamafuda Sasako, has arrived, asking if he has made it in time. The headless body of a muscular goblin collapses heavily to the ground. On the floor nearby, the warrior adventurer gasps, expressing her relief that she was saved just in the nick of time. She looks up at the silhouettes of Susaku and a werewolf companion. The adventurer explains that she had been tracking the werewolves by scent, and now she understands the situation. She insists that they leave the rest of the fight to her and her party. Susaku ignores her plea. Standing resolutely, he declares that it is an adult's duty to protect children. With a sharp command, he orders his werewolf forward into the fray. The creature lunges, claws extended, but is met with a powerful blow from one of the muscular goblins. The impact sends shockwaves through the air as their raw strength collides. It recoils, visibly stunned by the goblin's unexpected power. In the background, Susaku watches the confrontation, a look of surprise crossing his face as he realizes their foe is stronger than anticipated. Seeing his reaction, the warrior adventurer shouts at him, calling him a fool. She urgently explains that these are not ordinary goblins. They have been magically enhanced. Her words confirm his suspicion. He understands now that the goblin shaman is using magic to strengthen his minions. In response, Susaku draws another card, summoning a second, white-furred werewolf. The warrior adventurer stares in disbelief, questioning how he can possibly summon another one. The goblin shaman stands confidently amidst his enhanced warriors. He scoffs at his opponent's strategy, believing that simply increasing the number of weaklings will not grant them victory. His confidence is shattered in an instant. The black and white werewolves bypass his guards completely, striking at him simultaneously from both sides in a perfectly executed pincer attack. Susaku watches the maneuver succeed, stating calmly that everything is proceeding exactly as he predicted. Beside him, the warrior adventurer can only look on, her expression a mixture of shock and awe. He had realized that two distinct patterns existed for the werewolf card. In truth, they were a two-card set, and he had correctly predicted the powerful effect they would unleash when used in tandem. As a pair, the werewolves could display their true power, a devastating combination attack. The beast struck the goblin shaman from both sides simultaneously. A wave of relief washed over Susaku. His gamble had paid off. He knew the path to victory was clear: defeat the goblin shaman, and the entire threat would be neutralized. With a shout of acknowledgement, he commanded the white-furred werewolf to press the assault. The creature lunged, its claws tearing through the shaman's form as its dark-furred counterpart attacked from behind, ending the battle in a single, decisive moment. In the aftermath, a new card materialized in his hand, Goblin Shaman. As he examined it, the warrior adventurer, still sitting on the ground, demanded to know why he had been laughing at her. Her voice trembled with anger as she accused him of mocking her near-death experience. She declared that she knew she was an idiot and that he could blame her all he wanted. Her furious outburst was met with an immediate deep bow. "I'm sorry," he exclaimed. "I was wrong." The warrior stared, stunned into silence by his sudden apology. He looked up, his face filled with regret, and explained that he needed to apologize. When she had asked for his decision earlier, he had said nothing because he was afraid of taking responsibility and seeing her get hurt. He confessed that his inaction had only put her in even greater danger. He bows deeply before the kneeling warrior, declaring himself a failure as an adult and offering a profound apology for his actions. The warrior looks up, her eyes wide with utter shock and disbelief, stammering as she struggles to comprehend the situation. Her mind reels, her pupils swirling into spirals of confusion. She cannot understand why a grown man is bowing his head to her. She internally grapples with the scene, believing that an adult bowing to a child is an unthinkable breach of social order. The man's gesture is utterly nonsensical to her. The mage adventurer approaches, advising Susaku to stop, as his apology has put the warrior into a state of stunned confusion. She asks if he realizes their exchange has caused her to panic. She then turns to her companion, calling her Chaco, and prods her to say something in response, reminding her that an adult is bowing so earnestly. Flustered, the warrior closes her eyes and concedes that she understands, admitting that she was also at fault. Her embarrassment quickly shifts to indignation. She points at Susaku, scolding him for having no pride by bowing to someone younger. She lectures that if he were a noble, his entire clan would be executed for such an offense, and demands to know if he's prepared to atone for his sin 100 times over. Despite her tirade, he feels a wave of relief that the situation is resolved. His relief is cut short as a glowing sigil suddenly burns itself onto the back of his hand, leaving him to wonder what it is. He cries out as a searing heat erupts from the mark. The pain is immense, his right hand burning, as if it were an overheating piece of technology. He stared down at the card in his hand, the text a blur of indecipherable script. To his surprise, he found he could suddenly read a portion of it. This made no sense. He wondered why the text was unreadable, questioning if his eyesight was failing, but quickly dismissed the thought he'd had corrective surgery. His mind reeled, forcing him to consider if this was all just a hallucination. At that moment, a clear message materialized in his mind. The conditions for a level up had been fulfilled. As the message registered, a new sigil burned itself onto the back of his hand, a Roman numeral 2. He had leveled up. With this change, the text he couldn't read before became clear. He couldn't believe it. It was said that growth was impossible for someone in their 30s. Kamifuda Susaku stared at the card in his hand, a realization dawning. The card text, once unreadable, was now clear. He recalled his middle school days as a card gamer, clenching his fist as he wondered if it was possible that he had, somehow, leveled up at his age. This realization came to him within the stone walls of a labyrinth. He understood that by fighting here, he had indeed leveled up. Being able to read the card text meant his tactical options had broadened considerably. He examined another card, an ogre, noting that there were still some he couldn't decipher. He mused that if he continued to level up, he might be able to understand all of them. Just then, a sharp voice cut through his thoughts, demanding to know why he was spacing out. The one who had called out was the warrior, Chaco, who warned him to stay back. Beside her, the mage, Otome, looked on with a startled expression. Their statuses were suddenly visible to him. Otome, human, 1600/1000, and Chaco, human, 1800/1200. Chaco turned to face the man directly, her expression questioning. She asked if he could see people's statuses, remarking that it was just like a game. Her words sparked a new thought in his mind. If he could see theirs, could he see his own? He focused inward, attempting to view his own status with a sudden burst of insight. The information flooded his senses, and his face contorted in horror. His own status appeared before him. Kamifuda Susaku, human, 300/200. He cried out in disbelief at how weak he was, realizing that while the weakest monsters were being buffed, he was somehow being nerfed. As he reeled from the shock, the mage, Otome, suddenly shouted a warning to Chaco, urging her companion into a battle stance. Her warning was timely. From the darkness of a nearby passage, several goblins scrambled into view, one of them declaring that there were still remnants left. They emerged into the wider cavern, a small horde confronting the three adventurers. Susaku, Chaco, and Otome stood their ground, preparing for the fight to come. His eyes widened in shock as he perceived the status of the approaching creatures. Three goblins, each with their own distinct power levels. 810/530, 780/510, and 800/500. He processed the information, realizing he could now see the monster stats. He noted that there were variations between individuals, which meant that if he were to fight them, his thoughts turned to the cards. A cardified goblin had an attack power of 500. He wondered if turning them into cards weakened them. If so, his recent level up felt meaningless. But then he focused on the card's text, a detail he had overlooked. It read, "Increase the attack power of this goblin on the field." His mind paused on the implication. Meanwhile, the two adventurers faced the new wave of goblins. The warrior noted that more were still swarming despite them having defeated the shaman. The mage, annoyed, held up a card and defiantly shouted for them to come on. Suddenly, a single goblin wearing a dark vest broke from the pack and charged forward with surprising speed. From behind, Sasaki yelled out a warning, "Goblin!" The warrior reacted with disbelief, questioning if it was just another goblin. The mage, however, looked on with grim determination, declaring that they couldn't possibly lose to such small fry. In a blur of motion, the charging goblin swung its club in a powerful, sweeping arc, violently knocking three of its own kind into the air. The mage stared, utterly stunned. She couldn't believe it had defeated three at once, exclaiming that it was supposed to be the same as the other goblins. Watching the scene unfold, Susaku finally understood. It wasn't just the ability to read statuses that had become real. The effects written on the cards were manifesting as well. That goblin was empowered. The goblin champion's power surged, its attack strength more than doubling as it brutally cut down its own kind. The more goblins present, the stronger it became. Watching this, Susaku understood that knowing the card's effect gave him a decisive advantage. With newfound confidence, he commanded his empowered goblin to press the attack. The creature obeyed, but as it thinned the ranks of its brethren, its power began to wane, its attack strength dropping significantly. The sudden weakening caught Susaku completely by surprise, and he cried out in dismay. His plan faltered. Seizing the opportunity, the warrior adventurer dismissed the remaining goblins as mere small fry and leaped into the fray, cutting them down with ease. As she fought, realization dawned on him. The cards he had previously dismissed as weak were not useless. They were simply options whose effects could be brought to bear under the right circumstances. He gripped a card, a new fire in his eyes. He now understood that a player's skill could unlock countless paths to victory. This was the true gift of leveling up, an expansion of possibilities. At that very moment, a voice called his name. On a screen, the shop owner urged him to look, showing him a notification from the game, "Level up." The term echoed in Susaku's mind. Meanwhile, the two adventurers found themselves in a new chamber. The warrior, now with a bandage on her head, listened as the mage explained that a wall had collapsed, leading them here. She speculated that they had arrived at the floor boss's room. Susaku caught up to them before a large, sealed door. The warrior noted it was a dead end, but the mage clarified that beyond the door lay the deepest part of the floor. Susaku asked if this was the floor boss's domain. She confirmed his suspicion with a grave expression. In the deepest part of the floor, a powerful monster known as the floor boss awaits. To defeat, it is to conquer the entire level. As the adventurers prepare to face the dungeon's master, a grim vision flashes through Susaku's mind. A field of bodies, including his own, lying defeated in the pouring rain. The floor boss's strength is on another level, and annihilation is a very real possibility. The vision fades as the mage adventurer's voice cuts through. She states that she is prepared for what's to come. The warrior, equally resolute, declares her intention to challenge the boss. The mage then turns to Sasaku, asking what he will do. He remains silent for a moment, considering their resolve. He reflects internally that, truthfully, he didn't come this far for any grand purpose. His mind drifts back to his past, to the time he spent in the abandoned village. He never ventured into the dangerous forest, content to live within the safe zone, fighting only weak monsters. He realizes now that even the level up he received, signified by the glowing level 2 symbol on his hand, was a product of this stagnation. The realization solidifies into a new conviction. To level up, to truly become stronger, he must fight powerful monsters and accumulate combat experience. He connects this to his recent past. Even though he fought in the abandoned village, he never leveled up once. It meant that fighting within the safe zone, no matter how strong he became there, was ultimately pointless for real growth. With this newfound resolve, he turns towards the boss chamber. "I'm going," he declares, his voice firm. "I'll challenge the floor boss too." The two women watch him walk towards the imposing doors. The warrior adventurer remarks that he's a good person, even if he seems a bit childish. His expression is one of pure focus. A single, powerful desire burns within him. He wants to become strong. A faint, determined smile touches his lips as he fully embraces his new path. He reached the chamber doors, pressing his palm flat against the cold, heavy surface. With a surge of determination, he pushed it open, declaring their purpose aloud. "Let's go, to defeat the floor boss."